Good morning. I'm Mark Allen with Gaber.io, and I'm here today with Jorge Torres, the CEO of MindsDB. Good morning, Jorge. How you doing?
Pretty good, Mark. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I think we're both in the Bay Area. We have another beautiful day here after some torrid rainstorms over the weekend. It's good to have the sun back, right?
Yeah. It was pretty crazy to see how it can go so wild one day, and then the next day you wake up and it's beautiful and sunny.
I know. Yes. So to start with, can you share a brief background of yourself and your work experience?
Yeah. So my name is Jorge Torres. I'm currently the CEO at MindsDB. I've been involved in startups ever since I finished college, and I loved it. I fell in love with the idea of building something in your laptop that could affect thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people. I was very lucky to join very early on a startup called Couchsurfing. I don't know if you've heard of this. I was predecessor of Airbnb, and I was one of their first employees, first full-time engineer. And there I saw how there are a lot of problems. Once you get to like millions of users, there are a lot of problems that you could automate the solution for. And machine learning was a good way to automate some of those. And I fell in love with the idea of applied machine learning. So that's what I did. I did my master's in that. I did research in Berkeley in applied machine learning and automation of machine learning processes. And I think that's one of the things that I'm very passionate about, how people could apply machine learning to their day-to-day problems, especially once they get to a certain point where they cannot be scaled by a human, or where you need to make decisions that require for you to take into account so much information that a human can't. And therefore they augment the capability of people who are making these decisions. And in that process, we realized that many people had problems getting to the point where they could either retain the talent or capture talent that knew about machine learning, or when they had the talent to do machine learning in-house, they struggle with moving a lot of this prototypes into production. At the end, so many machine learning projects, they just kind of stay in some researcher's laptop and they don't really make it into the applied world. So we decided to tackle that problem. And that's essentially what we do with MindsDB. We democratize machine learning to the sense that we simplify it so that more and more people can use it. And then we make it very simple for you to actually make a machine learning system that could be used in production, like bringing that capability to as close as the data as possible.
Interesting. So, I mean, and as you know, ML and AI in general are just starting the upward trend. So I think these kinds of services are going to be more and more valuable as time goes on. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that our game is to ensure that more and more companies can do it, especially those companies that already have data. At the end, you cannot do machine learning without data. There are all these companies that are kind of drowning in data, and they could be using it, but they don't, just because the way that machine learning has been designed and built still is very kind of research driven. And the term of applied machine learning is something that recently is getting some attention. Like at the end, you don't have to build any machine learning model from scratch unless you're doing a PhD and you want to change something. You just want to apply and build those blocks and put them together without having to reinvent the wheel every time that this happens. So now you have hundreds of thousands of engineers reinventing the wheel over and over. And then many of those don't even make it into something that people are actually using. And at the end, the difference that we see here is there's this world of data that exists today in the databases. There's this world of machine learning frameworks and tools and building blocks, and we glue them together. So if you have your data and you want to do some type of forecasting or applied machine learning, then we connect and bring this world of machine learning frameworks to you by making this abstraction of being able to do it all in SQL.
It's very interesting, because I mean, I know a little bit about this subject, and it seems like up until now, any ML project or AI project, there's you have to go and find someone that knows it, and they're in demand, and they're being pulled in a bunch of different directions. And it sounds like you're trying to bridge that gap. Is that true?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the gap that we're bridging.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that we successfully have to all the users that are database users. And that's the reason why we also partner with the biggest database makers of the world. Like we have partnerships with the guys from Mongo, the guys from Snowflake, MariaDB, even non-SQL databases like Redis, and streaming databases like Kafka. So we understand that these are the companies that are driving information inside organizations, and by being able to bind ourselves to those implementations, then people don't have to use anything different from what they're using today, but yet enable a very powerful capability such as machine learning or forecasting, mostly for forecasting, which is what most people do in the applied machine learning.
Yes, that would be true. So when did you start MindsDB? Is it what year?
We started in 2018.
Okay, 3 years.
Yeah, and yeah, it's been quite a ride. It was born from a research project that I was doing, and my co-founder and we decided to turn it into an open source project, and from there it became very successful as an open source initiative, and as a company as well. I think that we've had the fortune of meeting great investors, being through the Berkeley Accelerator. The YC was also a community that helped us understand successful open source startups as a whole. We brought in investors like the creators of MySQL and MariaDB. So yeah, we're lucky in the sense of playing the game of open source with the support of individuals that really know how to do this well.
Mhm.
And that has helped us avoid a lot of mistakes down the road, or even to leapfrog some of the steps that usually open source projects that are also become companies have to walk a longer journey to get to.
Yeah. So if you started in 2018 and then in 2020, the pandemic hit, I mean, did that cause any issues that you weren't quite ready for? Because it seems like you were probably going like this, and all of a sudden everything came to a stop.
Yeah, that's a great question. So we, it's interesting because we didn't know that different from a very small startup. Like at the end, we're still small. We were 5 people when the pandemic started, and at that time, YC was about to be over, and we were actually the batch in YC that didn't have a demo day or all these things that people look forward to. They just were a different reality for us.
Mhm.
However, we again were successful in the sense of raising our seed round, despite like all the chaos that was happening. Like when the city was like San Francisco closed in March, and we were closing around at the same time, and
Mm.
things like that happened, and that also gave us the opportunity to rethink how we wanted the company to scale.
Mhm.
At the end, we were planning to have just a bigger office in Berkeley and just kind of make it a Berkeley-based startup. But this reality of the pandemic hit us without understanding how long it was going to be. And understanding that that was going to be the case, we decided to start recruiting across the world. And right now we're 25 people
Mm.
from most continents. And I think that it really works out well for us. That we add this element by chance because it really wasn't designed. The amount of diversity that MindsDB has today might have been harder to accomplish here in the Bay Area,
Mhm.
and we're happy in the way that it's working. So we're likely going to stay remote. There is so much talent everywhere. We do have talent in the US, and we have amazing people from our team here, but we also have talent in Europe, talent in South America, in Russia,
Mhm.
and even Australia. So that's New Zealand. It's been a quite an interesting journey.
Yeah, live. I know that life. Lots of different calls at different hours of the day, depending upon who you're talking to and what time zone they're in, right?
Yeah, and where we realize there's like a band
Mhm.
that overlaps for most working hours. And that allows us to have like certain important communications happening around that time. But also the clock is always going for MindsDB, you know, like at any time of the day, there's someone improving and working towards making MindsDB better, which cannot happen in an office that only is
Right.
in one place. So the fact that our cycles are 24/7, it's really interesting.
Yeah, pretty interesting. So knowing what you know now, I mean, it sounds like you were going to have an office. Do you foresee that you will have an office someday, or you think you're just going to stay 100% remote?
Well, that's a question that I go back and forth in the answer. People here, they like to find a space to meet and to actually connect. So we may have an office here in the Bay Area, a smaller one where people can go and leave as they please, and to make it a space for people to connect. Given that it's open source, we're also debating if when we open this space, we enable it for anyone that is a MindsDB user to just show up and work from there. But truly, the essence of being a remote company will stay in MindsDB. I don't think that there is any rollback from that. And all of our efforts are into making it better for people as we learn how to run a successful distributed team and all the perks that come with it. We have people on our team that have traveled the world as they work with MindsDB. Like literally every week on the weekends, they move somewhere else and they work from one exotic place. And the life work balance that the people in MindsDB actually get to enjoy, perhaps is harder to guarantee when you have a fixed location. I myself had to travel back and forth between Austin for a long time, and that was always a struggle. And the pandemic just, or like having defined this company as a remote one, doesn't show that people can't do the work because they're in one place. On the other hand, stress is like the one that I had of like, oh, well, now I'm not going to be in the office, but most people have to be in the office and I'm the only one just traveling back and forth. I don't think of this anymore. And I think that I continue to do my work in the best possible way, but being confined to one place is not one of my concerns. And I believe that the same thing holds true to individuals that are starting families, individuals that enjoy also having their families close by, and then they can just deal with their work on the times that they think are suitable, so long they meet their objectives, is important. And then also changes the conversation into, okay, what are the objectives? And what are the objectives that we expect from a team, from an individual? And so long those are met, it doesn't really matter where they are. It just matters more that we actually align in those. And it's really helped us turn the organization into like an objective-driven organization, rather than just people ticketing hours in one place where, you know, maybe their minds are somewhere else.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I've talked to a bunch of CEOs and CIOs and people about this particular topic. And one thing I think that it also might have helped you with, and maybe you can comment on this, is because you had to go remote, it forced you to have more discipline. It seems like when you're in an office, people rely on walking up to someone and tapping them on the shoulder and saying, hey, where now it's like, no, we really have to design this the proper way so that the people living 12,000 miles from us know what we want them to do. Did you notice that?
So I think that we were so small that we didn't have like a significant mind shift when it came to properly delegating responsibilities. When you're a whole team, it's the only way that you can function, because everyone has like a specific focus, and then the work that the founders do is more to aggregate the results and just kind of like be the connector. And that doesn't change too much in an open source. In a distributed team. Right. It does certainly imply that as we grow the team, that kind of sense of responsibility and accountability prevails for even a larger team. And that is perhaps something that we don't know, because we don't know how it is the other way around. Yeah. But certainly what you describe of, you have very clear descriptions of what is expected from you. And therefore the room for for people doing things that, I mean, people like to work. That's
Yeah.
essentially what we understand. But being able to do things that matter for the general objective,
Mm.
it's a hard thing, I assume, for bigger companies. I think that when these things have to be really well detailed and described and communicated because of the constraint of location, then minimizes the chances of people just kind of going in different directions, even when the intention is the right one.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. Then I think you're just getting to that size where it will start to become an issue. I think once you start getting past that 25, now you've got a level of management, right, that is responsible for all of this, as opposed to when there's 5 of you, you can all just call each other at any time.
Yeah, and I think that we are getting better at many of the challenges that involve scaling a team. Being remote certainly has challenges when it comes to what culture you define, or the culture of your company.
Right.
Being in the same place builds a sense of kinship. Whereas the fact that many of us just know each other through Zoom, it is hard to build like that sense of we're all part of a team that is building something because we all are or see the world in a similar way. However, we were very lucky even to find someone that joined the company to do one job, and later we realized that she was like previously in a previous life she was a fantastic HR manager. We started scaling. We were asking her for help in those fronts, and now she's fully transitioned into like the HR manager of MindsDB, and she's focused on ensuring that people feel connected and people feel that even though we're in many different locations, that we connect somehow. So we have like days where on Fridays there's an hour of playing computer games remotely, which, you know, you think of this as like, well, people in an office, they go on and do things like playing football or, you know, like,
ping pong's a common one.
But they like doing it remote is also possible, and people enjoy it, and people really get to understand elements of other individuals that may not be apparent just in a Zoom call, and it just allows you to understand how to build collaboration and how individuals tend to react to certain situations and whatnot. So I think she's doing a fantastic job, and we could not have done it without her, or at least I think that without her, we would be probably still lost in how to foster this environment. So we would probably be asking this question too late. So we were very lucky to have her on the team.
Well, that's great. And they're cutting the lawn outside my window here now. It's getting hot here, so I'd love to talk more, but I think now is a good time to end the podcast. It was great talking to you, Jorge. You never know. I'm a DBA, so maybe you and I'll get together, maybe in Burlingame or Millbrae one of these days.
Absolutely. And if you're ever in the San Francisco vicinity, I mean, you're like, we can just meet up for a coffee and talk more.
All right, sounds good. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.